SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
A hot one it is out there, but it's supposed to cool off. I mean, it's going to be downright frigid for August this time of year, with temperatures expected to decline, low 90s, high 80s, because it's been in the high 90s of late. But it is August, sultry August in the great state of Mississippi. All right, we're here, ready to go, and as expected, Jerome Powell, we talked about that yesterday. He's the chairman of the United States Federal Reserve. They're meeting out there in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I don't know when that trend came from, that tradition, if you want to call it that, where they Fed governors go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, of all places. Seems a little odd, like random. You're looking it up. What do you see there? Where did that come from?
1982.
Jeez. Okay. Long time ago. What's up with that?
Apparently, they used to be held at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City.
Okay. Sort of centrally located, Kansas City. I mean, heck, that's just about smack dab in the middle of the nation. But they go up to Jackson Hole, and they meet. They sequester themselves and talk monetary policy. And then the Fed chairman emerges from those discussions and delivers remarks to the nation. That happened this morning. And I wasn't able to tune in, dadgummit. You know, I love to watch it when the Fed chairman, Jay Powell, is talking, and I always watch on the Business Channel because you can see the market's reaction, latching on to every word that he states there. And he came away saying, well, I'm kind of open to cutting rates, the benchmark interest rate next month. Open the door for a central bank rate cut. I don't think we'll see more than 0.25%, 25 basis points. I think that's what we're going to see. He said there's still uncertainty over inflation. And that, that's something I really haven't, discussed a lot with the audience that I think is worthy of just putting out there. What do you guys think? Have you found that prices have declined of late, say, since we changed presidents? Have prices declined? Because we still are experiencing inflation, though at a lower rate. And as we talked about many times in the past, Rhino, we don't want to have deflation. That means there's massive markdowns going down on everything you buy. And I'm not talking about volatile commodities such as gas, oil, which are constantly up and down, like the old Rhino kangaroo. Not talking about that because those are sensitive. The price of oil and thus usable fuel, gasoline, diesel, etc., other petroleum products, they are price is driven by the underlying price of crude oil, which is a globally traded commodity, which changes every single day. So that, excluding that, very volatile. And the same is true with food. That's why the Fed has the headline, not the Fed, the economic guys that track that stuff have the headline inflation, and then they've got the core inflation. And core inflation eliminates what they believe to be more volatile, and that's food and energy. And a lot of people always say, well, heck, I spent a lot of my money on food and energy. Why are you excluding that? It's just because it's not considered an indicator of trends because, again, those are globally traded commodities. That's different than going to the store and buying some good that's not globally traded as a commodity. That's the pricing of that works a little different. That's why you have headline inflation, that's everything, and then you've got core. And you got two major metrics of that, the Consumer Price Index and then the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. The latter, the PCE, the Fed's favorite rate, if you will, to analyze and consider in its decision making. You know, one thing that always concerns me is that it's the old Bureau of Labor Statistics. I don't have a lot of confidence in those guys. I know I've made that point repeatedly on the program. They're the ones that do the CPI, the PCE, although it's a little easier, I would argue. You're not talking about random calls to people to figure out if they're working or not. But what the Fed chairman said was, still a little worried about that. I don't think we've seen the last of the impact of tariffs, and we still are experiencing an inflation. The latest report, it's closer to 3% than 2%, and 2% is the Fed's target. However, this is the conundrum, and this is the difficult task Fed policymakers have, is with those two mandates, that's according to statute, price stability, maximizing employment. There are plenty of signs out there that indicate the job market is weakening. And so when you see a weakening job market, the typical reaction from a monetary policy perspective is let's lower rates. That means companies are more likely to, and consumers, to spend money, and that requires jobs to produce whatever it is they're spending their money on. So that's the balance they have. You got still inflation not where they want it, but they got the eye over here on the job market. And basically what he said is, yeah, I think based on the weakness in the job market, that the balance of risks appears to be shifting. If that's not Fed Reserve Chairman gobbledygook speak, I don't know what is. The balance of risks appears to be shifting. I wish I'd have been watching the market when he said that, because you know it probably was hopping around like the old kangaroo as investors, traders. What the heck does that mean? They're just like me, like, what does he mean by that?
Well, after a statement like that, I'm sure it was a little bit more violent than a kangaroo hop. It was probably more like a spasm.
Yeah, that's right. And then, so I'm progressing through the Wall Street Journal's report. It literally just out 30 minutes ago. And what I was just saying to you guys is it's a conundrum in that, well, we don't have inflation where we want it, but we got a weak job market, and that's when you get worried. And so he says, this has led to an unusual situation in which the risk of worse than expected labor market outcomes are rising. And if those risks materialize, they can do so quickly in the form of sharply higher layoffs and rising unemployment. In other words, just what I was saying earlier, we're worried that if we keep rates where they are, yeah, that may be effective in terms of combating inflation, but it also may further weaken the job market. And so the idea here, folks, is that if people aren't working, we have a weak job market, well, then they're not earning income to go spend money. If they're not earning income to spend money, then inflation tends to moderate, tends to mute. So that's what their rather complex job is, but those are the two aspects of the mission of the Federal Reserve as far as monetary policy. But here's the bottom line. The market likes this. So the NASDAQ, last I checked, was up 2%. 422 points. The Dow up 827. So it's off to the races, which is good because it's been beat down. So I know we're talking a lot about monetary policy and money and finance, but it affects your money too. So you'll like it when you go look at your 401k plans. Our public employees retirement system, which we've talked about exceedingly on this program, it likes it because that means its portfolio is performing better, and that addresses its unfunded liability situation. So, Rhino, if we only allowed the big ones, Social Security, to invest at least some of its assets in something other than the 3.5% bonds they're only allowed to invest in, issued by the U.S. Treasury, I think we could go a long way towards curing its massive $75 trillion unfunded liability. If it's good enough for the states, why isn't it good enough for the Fed? We're coming right back with Dr. Katherine Pannel. Stay with us. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert
Let's get on with it.
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Little Bruce Springsteen bumping us into this segment. Appreciate that, Rhino. Glory days, of course. It's kind of appropriate because not too long in the future, the distant future, it'll be the World Series time. Right now, have you been catching any of the Little League World Series on ESPN? Always fun.
Some of the highlights. I haven't watched any of the games live now.
Always fun. That's baseball. That's better than pro baseball, in my view. It's kind of like college basketball versus pro basketball, right? Same sort of deal. Yeah. So we're pleased to welcome now Dr. Katherine Pannel to the Element Wealth Studio. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us about this. You've just been elected to serve as the president, the 158th president for the Mississippi State Medical Association. You, of course, are a psychiatrist and medical director for Right Track Medical Group. So, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you so
awesome.
much. I'm excited. I'm really excited for the year ahead.
Yeah, 158.
I
I was a little surprised. So, our guys at SuperTalk Mississippi News, our news director, JT Mitchell, published a great article a few days ago. Folks, you can find that at supertalk.fm. And it was well done. So, until I read the article, I didn't realize the Mississippi State Medical Association had been around 158 years.
That's right. A long
That's
time.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Fighting for patients and physicians for over 150 years.
Well, you stole my thunder. I was about to ask you exactly what is your mission? What do you guys do?
So, yeah, we're the largest physician organization in the state. Basically, they're just to advocate for physicians and patients. If physicians have woes or patients have woes, we want to be there to fight for them.
Now, you've been in the studio here many times. You and I discussing mental health in particular. Yep. That's your area of practice, and it's always enlightening. I always learn a lot from that. It's because it deals with the human brain to a great extent. I might argue that we have a lot more to learn that we don't fully understand all this stuff.
Absolutely, there's no doubt. Right, our brains are so complicated and beautiful, but yeah, we haven't even really tapped into what our brains can do. We sure don't know.
Yeah, but the mental health situation it appears to have intensified as a problem, not only in the state of Mississippi, but across the country, right?
Right. And I think social media has a lot to do with that. But I also think, we've always had a mental health problem, but I think, thankfully, because of COVID, we have started to talk about it more, so we're hearing more about it as well.
So what was it about COVID that sort of precipitated the conversation?
Well, I don't think anybody was immune to the mental health ramifications of COVID. We were all sheltered at home. We weren't having human interaction. Everybody suffered in some form. And so everybody could relate, which made everybody more willing to talk about it.
Okay. Well, I think one thing we learned from that era, if you will, was that human beings need to be around other human beings, don't they?
That's right. And I say this about therapy, like telemedicine, telepsychiatry is great, but there's something about the human connection that you still have to have. No doubt, which is why I am a fairly strong opponent of the work from home revolution. And now we're seeing so many companies saying, you really need to be here in the office, that you can't it's more difficult to build a corporate culture, which is so valuable and critical to the success of a company when folks are scattered all over the place. Now, some you can't help. That's just the nature of the job. But there are a lot of other situations where you just need to be around others. I totally agree. I kind of like a hybrid model. I think you can do some from home. I think it's probably good for a work-life balance. But there's something about in-person and camaraderie and feeling part of a team that you just can't replace when you're virtual.
Well, I think about, Dr. Pannel, I think about young folks that are just entering the job market. Okay, you're hired. Stay at home, dial in, and do your work. I can't even comprehend how that works.
No, and again, like our young people, that's what they've been used to. Like we go back to saying because of COVID, and I just imagine, I don't think this whole work from home thing is going to be forever. I think we're all coming back. There is going to be a hybrid, and I worry about our kids not having those social skills because they've never had to use them.
That's a good point. And corporate executives, of course, say, there's just so much value of people being here. I know I employed the old, and I'm not sure if it's psychologists that dreamed this up or if it was sort of a management theorist, but I believe in the old management by walking around theory.
Sure.
And the engaging with people was so valuable, and it sort of knocks down what can be perceived as barriers between management and workers. But when you're engaging and you're face-to-face with them, they're more comfortable, you're more comfortable. I think they're more productive.
I agree. And I feel like you have more of an investment into the company, too, when you feel like you're actually a part of the team and not siloed in a house behind a computer all day.
Yeah.
And it's also very difficult for, patients of mine that are working remotely that have, attention deficit disorder. They struggle with that whole remote, model and having to make sure that they can sit behind the computer the whole time or getting a schedule. They're not as productive. They value that in-person work environment.
Sure. So, of the 158 years, are you the first psychiatrist?
We were looking back at that, me and the executive director for the Psychiatric Association, and I believe I am, which is mind-blowing to me.
Awesome.
First osteopathic physician, first psychiatrist, which... not the last, for sure. We have great DOs and psychiatrists all over Mississippi doing wonderful work. But for now, I guess I was the first.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how many members in the association?
So it goes up and down, but we're close to 3,000 right now and hoping to grow that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's really cool. So is this something you were seeking, or somebody nominated you? And I've served as board chairman in the past where I missed a meeting and I came back and found out I was a board chairman.
No. This has been a long time coming. I've served on the board for almost a decade, and it kind of was just maybe the next natural progression. I didn't always want to be in advocacy, but I had some things in my family and got involved with, advocating for mental illness, and just, I guess the bug bit me, and I've loved it ever since. So just got involved with the State Medical and have grown in leadership through that, and here I am.
So how do you balance your time in your practice and then your responsibilities as the president of the association?
Well, I'm very blessed to have a great job where, I'm invested in the company. I'm a partner in the company, so I can kind of tailor my schedule with that. But also, I do a lot of remote work with Magnolia Health Plan, which gives me the ability to travel over the state to see patients and physicians. So it's a hybrid model. I'm in person some, I'm remote some, but it does give me great flexibility, especially to do my presidential work, but also be mom at home because that is my favorite role.
Yeah. So Dr. Edney, who runs the Department of Health, of course, was once the president of this association, right?
He was.
Long time ago, I served on a panel talking about healthcare reform before the Affordable Care Act with Randy Easterling.
Yeah, he
Dr.
was
Easterling.
also a past president.
Also,
yes.
he was president
still
at the time.
Engaged in advocacy. He's still around.
Great guy. Yeah, I want to say that was 2009, believe it or not. So he was president of the association then. So you've got big shoes to fill, as they say. A lot of great people have held this position.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Big shoes to fill, but they've been so gracious to offer themselves to help me through the year too. Great mentors, which I think is huge to mentor our younger generation along the way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So talk about your practice these days. Anything in particular you want to share about patients that you're seeing or what you're seeing is becoming more prevalent in society?
Yeah, so our baby boomers are aging. I'm now a medical director for an inpatient geriatric psychiatry unit in Marks, Mississippi, and continue to see a lot of the dementia, which kind of is one of the priorities I have this year as president is growing our respite program in the state. 2020, we passed legislation to get a caregiver program started in Mississippi. And we got federal funding to have 40 families enrolled in that to kind of give them caregiver help because caregiver stress and burnout is real. And these are for the families that don't qualify for Medicaid but are not wealthy enough to provide home health services.
Okay.
We enrolled 40 members, and it is capped out. It's doing wonderfully, but the waiting list is huge. So we really want to go ahead and get more attention to that program, grow it, and get more funding to continue it because, unfortunately, the federal funding ends in August of next year.
Gotcha. Well, we got some more to talk about if you hang around.
Sure,
we got Dr. Katherine Pannel, the newly minted president of the Mississippi Medical Association, coming right back in the Element Well studio.
I would buy her the MidDays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Who draws the crowd and plays so loud, baby? It's the guitar man. Who's gonna steal the show? Baby, it's the guitar man. He can make you love, he can make you cry.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. That's David Gates and Brett. I know every time you play it, I have to talk about seeing them at the Coliseum in like 71 or 72 or something, like dating myself a bit. We're back with you and Dr. Katherine Pannel, who has recently been elected as the president of the Mississippi State Medical Association. So before we went to break there, Dr. Pannel, we were talking about just some of what you're seeing as a practicing psychiatrist and offering mental health therapy and treatment and so forth. It's a huge problem in our country, a variety of reasons. So one of the things and factors, I guess, contributing to what appears to be an increase. And I'm not sure, do you think, Dr. Pannel, are we better at diagnosing it? Maybe that's why we have more cases? Or is there something going on in our society that's just causing more people to have mental problems?
I just think that the stigma has fallen and people are now more willing to seek treatment.
Okay.
That's why the numbers are going up.
Okay.
Because, when you used to look at it was like 1 in 5 suffered from a mental illness, but no, I'm sorry, 1 in 5, but then it was like 30% of those that it would even seek treatment.
30%.
So a lot are going undiagnosed simply just because they were too scared to go get help.
Right.
But I think now, since we are talking about it more, people are normalizing it more, and they are willing to get treatment.
Okay. And so you've also done a fair amount of work and research on Alzheimer's and dementia, and certainly there's been way more. I don't even remember hearing about that until 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
And now it seems like that there's a lot of discussion, a lot of research going on around that, a lot of new treatment therapies and so forth. Talk about that.
Well, and you're right. As we learn more and time goes on, we start putting diagnosis to things that we were seeing way back when that we didn't really know. You just thought it was normal age and they were losing their mind. They're senile. That's where that word came from. But
okay.
Now we have an actual diagnosis for it, and people are researching it. And not until recently, we really didn't have any promising research or medications for Alzheimer's. There was Aricept and Namenda that could maybe slow the progression a little bit, but it was nothing profound. You were buying months, not years, but some of the newer therapies that are coming down the pipeline are actually very promising.
Okay. Well, that's certainly good to hear. So something I wanted to visit with you on today is this advent, of course, of artificial intelligence, which is being injected throughout society in every corner of it, regardless of industry or endeavor. And so there have been some questions about using artificial intelligence in mental health treatment. The state of Illinois, I think the first in the country, just passed legislation that bans certain types of artificial intelligence from being using in mental health treatment.
Yeah, I think there are positives and there are negatives of AI, and I think it just kind of broke it on the scene so quickly and has been so rushed to be implemented that we kind of forgot that we need guardrails. I do think there are places for it, and it can do wonderful things, especially for physicians in reducing burnout, helping them in their practices, but we do need guardrails to make sure that the information that it's pumping out is accurate information.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They call it the Wellness and Oversight for Psychological Resources Act, just signed into law a couple of weeks ago, prohibits the use of AI for therapeutic decision-making, but allows its application for administrative and supplementary support services. So, I think that's consistent with what you're saying there.
And we were talking earlier about that whole human connection. I think, some of these apps, these mind apps where you can go and do the breathing techniques or you can actually chat with someone, that is all great. But I don't think it should replace the face-to-face, person-to-person interaction. It should supplement it maybe, but especially when you're having trouble getting in, with a therapist or a psychiatrist and there's a long wait time, maybe that can kind of bridge the gap, but it should never replace it. Yeah.
So I'm reading here that some other states have kind of picked up on what Illinois has done, and they're also exploring the possibility of enacting legislation that would put some guardrails around that. And I think that's just natural. Anytime you have a new, novel technology like this that we don't know everything about, it's just necessary to again place some of those guardrails around it so that it is not used inappropriately.
I agree. I feel like we just need to pump the brakes just a little bit to make sure that we get it right.
Yeah, and I've shared on the show. I just came back from a huge AI conference last week, and a key subject discussed was orchestration and governance. And, of course, the latter deals with these sorts of regulations and restrictions you'd have. I bet there were 25 companies on the exhibit floor there that have different solutions around orchestration and governance. Everybody's having to deal with that and think about that as they implement AI into their organization.
Yeah, I didn't fully realize, I guess, how big it had gotten. I went on a trip to New York City with my oldest daughter, and we looked up, and there was this massive billboard in Times Square that basically said, "Are you tired of hiring humans?" And then it was an AI, an advertisement for AI, and I was like, "Wow, this is where we are." But you're right. I do think that the governance and the guardrails and the boundaries are very important. But it's just coming out so fast. It's almost like the toothpaste is getting out of the tube, and it's going to be really hard to roll it back. So you're probably aware that the governor and the legislature together decided to
really just kind of put the brakes on various pieces of legislation that was introduced in this past session and created this task force, AI Regulatory Task Force. I was asked to serve on that by Representative Jill Ford and Senator Bart Williams from the Senate side, who also, of course, are co-chair. They respectively chair the technology committees in their chambers. So first meeting's coming up in a month, and I know this will be one of the subjects that we're going to address in the first meeting, and we'll have subsequent meetings and then advise the legislature on that.
That's very cool, and I think very wise, timely for sure.
I do too, and I feel certain we'll be calling on subject matter experts to come in and offer some advice and testimony as well, because we people can't know everything there is about that, and we got to rely on folks that come from different disciplines to guide us in that effort. But yeah, it's moving fast.
It is.
No doubt. Drug use in the state, in our country. I know you deal with that a lot. What are you seeing?
We are seeing overdose deaths go down, which is amazing. A lot of that is due to the harm reduction techniques that have been, put into place, getting naloxone out into communities, having the fentanyl testing strips. That's been huge. So while the overdose deaths are going down, substance use is not. I mean, it's still pretty high where we are. So we've got a long way to go in the prevention side of things.
You and I have talked about this before. It seems like, and I know it's been reported, that the marijuana usage is up considerably, right, in our country. In fact, I ran across an article. I meant to get to this on the show, Rhino, a couple of weeks ago, that drinking is down, that we're not consuming as much alcohol, and I wonder if it's because that folks are instead consuming marijuana.
Well, you're hearing the negatives about alcohol, and we don't treat alcohol as a medicine, but now we're calling cannabis medical cannabis, so we're kind of given this picture that it's medicinal and it's safe. So I do think people have probably chosen to go that route more. But outside of like the medical certification, I mean, the marijuana, the cannabis today is not the cannabis that we saw decades ago. I mean, it's so potent now. We're seeing a lot of psychosis, more mental health issues because of it.
Young folks I worry about.
Yes, and then that's another scary thing that terrifies me is the young folks getting any kind of marijuana that would be laced with something that is deadly.
And that's exactly what's happening with the fentanyl stuff, right? They think they're consuming plain old marijuana or some other drug to achieve some high, and the next thing you know, they're dead because it's got some tiny bit of fentanyl in it,
That's right? Yeah, sadly.
It's still a problem.
It is still a problem. And then once we get the fentanyl numbers down, they come up with something new, like the xylazine, that's even stronger and deadlier. So, yeah, I mean, it's always something, and that's why the prevention of going to substances is so huge. Well, we've really got to get in the schools and start teaching our kids coping skills so that they're not seeking these substances for a quick fix.
Okay. Yeah. Is there something we need to be doing from a legislative perspective, perhaps in our classrooms as part of our curriculum
I will
in
say
the schools?
That Representative Sam Creekmore, he 1 or 2 years ago passed HB 231, which actually was to get substance use education to the schools. So the good thing is that they are aware of the problem, and they've got a task force to look at youth mental health. Senator Boyd has headed that up with some child psychiatrists on it as well. So the attention is there, and we're trying to find solutions. So it is not being ignored. Yeah.
So, of course, Representative Creekmore chairs the Public Health Committee in the House. Well, good. So are you working with them and other physicians, talking to them about things they ought to be thinking about?
Always talking to physicians, and I try to be at the Capitol as much as I can.
I know, I see you there.
Pushing beneficial legislation and trying to kill negative legislation. Right.
I get it. Dr. Katherine Pannel, recently elected to serve as the president of the Mississippi State Medical Association. Always good to see you.
It's going to be a good year. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Have a great weekend.
We're coming right back. In the Element Well studio, we got Senator Chad McMahan coming on the program. He'll get all connected up with Rhino at 11:05. Stay with us.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
sunlight hurts my eyes, and something without wanting love bears heavy on my mind.
Ah, yes, the great Bill Withers.
And the world's all right with me.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. So the president, it seems like every day, right, there's a new ruling coming from a court somewhere. It's hard to keep up with all the different dang courts and all the cases being filed, right? It really is.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, which level is that? What district is that in? And it, and all that kind of stuff. So the president yesterday, he experienced a significant win on a case. And then he also had a setback today. So the win was that the Supreme Court will allow the president to essentially strip DEI as a requirement or as a factor in grants issued by the National Institute of Health. Now, the first thing that comes to mind to me on that is, why is DEI part of these grants? What does that have to do with the National Institute of Health? And I know that's because the left in this country, on a daily basis, tries to make this big stink about how everything is unfair and inequitable, whether it's roads, a la Pete Buttigieg. They put an intersection over here, and it's a racist and all that kind of stuff.
Racist bridges.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, it's health equity. But the problem is these weren't just grants to ensure that the so-called underserved, as they like to describe them. Is there another term they use for that as well? I think it's underserved. Isn't that the typical term they use? Yeah, you're shaking your head. So
yeah, for health.
Yeah, those communities
underrepresented for voters.
Okay, right. Under, right? The key word there, meaning it's intentional discrimination.
Systemic.
Right. Exactly. And so these grants weren't about improving the health. They're just dumb grants that somebody shakes the government down on and uses it, honestly, to enrich themselves. This is why I believe we ought to just end all grants. I wanted to use a different word. I had to catch myself there. You probably can guess the word I was thinking there. We can't say on the air. Let's just end them. First, like I've said before, we borrow 50 cents of every dollar, roughly, to fund them. That's just dumb. To go borrow money to give away. That makes no sense. Would you do that in your household? Would a business do that? Oh, you need some money? Let me go borrow it to give to you. No, of course you wouldn't, but that's what our government does. Hence, $37 trillion of debt. But the Supreme Court ruled yesterday, no surprise, 5-4, that the Trump administration can cancel hundreds of millions of dollars in grants issued by the NIH that are linked to, quote, diversity initiatives. So I think that's good. By the way, this overturns and blocks a ruling from, no surprise, a Boston-based judge that declared the Trump administration's cancellations were illegal and blocked them from going forward. So the Supreme Court says, not so fast there, lawmaker in a robe judge in Boston. The president is within his purview. And this is a problem, in my view, that all this money that is issued by the agency complex only requires the administration to sign off on it. I mean, I get it. The Congress appropriates money, but there's always a line item in there that just says grant funding, right, for NIH. And then the agency figures out how they want to do that within certain parameters, but it's pretty generous and pretty liberal, and they get around it, work around it. Of course, this is what then results in cases going to the Supreme Court. And it's no different than when agencies issue regulations that stem from law, and they get out of their swim lane and they overreach, and that's where we ended up with the Chevron deference and some pivotal rulings about the EPA, one of the worst.
EPA trying to regulate puddles in your backyard.
Exactly right. Great example. And that's absolutely true, by the way. You're not exaggerating there. You're not making that up. That absolutely happened and has happened. So that was a victory for the president. On the other hand, Alligator Alcatraz down there in Florida, man, the left's been going crazy because, of course, they care more about illegal aliens that come into this country and break the law than they do their victims who are American citizens. Thus, we have this high-security facility, and a judge says much of it must be dismantled. That made me mad, by the way. Don't come into the country and break the law. You ain't got nothing to worry about. Coming right back with Senator Chad McMahan after Fox News and SuperTalk News. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more. I hope she holds on a little longer. Send a letter on a long summer day.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
We're pleased to welcome now Senator Chad McMahan. He is a representative for District 6, a senator for District 6, I should say. Serves as the chair of the Municipalities Cmte, vice chair, business and financial institutions. Is that still current, Senator? Welcome.
Yes, sir. Now, as far as I know, it was current yesterday, Gerard. Now, you're well informed. You may know something I don't know.
No, sir. I haven't heard anything, but sometimes when I get to line up, I found out that there's been the little musical chairs played on the committees, and we haven't updated our information. I just always want to confirm and verify. So,
you scared me because it may have changed, and you would know.
I'm not sure about that. They don't call me for committee assignments, I can assure you. But we appreciate you joining us today. Some big news coming out of your area with the Tennessee Valley Authority. Of course, that's the utility company that services much of the eastern parts of Mississippi. We got the west. It's Entergy. The southern part of the state is Mississippi Power. And then, of course, we got the eastern part and the northeastern part in particular, TVA. And it looks like that they're joining forces with Kairos Power and Google to construct a nuclear power plant, right, in Tennessee that will provide electricity and power to the region.
Yeah, it's really exciting what's taking place. And, you know, we take our stable and affordable power in Mississippi. Sometimes we take it for granted. But having TVA is your economic partner. And believe me, anything that takes place in this region, TVA is at the table,
Sure.
providing stable power and reliable power.
Sure. I mean, I've said it many times before on the show, just talking to other folks about just economic and development in general, but power, energy, that's sort of become the new currency in economic development. That's like the top of the list of every prospective project because of the way that our society is growing around this artificial intelligence explosion. Of course, that requires data centers, which consume lots of power. But fact is, we're trying to improve the factory and the manufacturing footprint in this country. That's part of the president's agenda. Factories require power as well, as you know. So if you can't supply the power, really, it's impossible to grow your economy.
Yeah, and I wrote an article last month in the Mississippi Business Journal exactly about what NAFTA took, how it robbed Mississippi and the United States of our manufacturing base. You might want to link or check that article out. But
I did. I saw it.
Something else that we have here, Gerard, in this area is water. We have stable and good access to water as well.
Yeah.
And, some of the largest companies in the country now want to do business in Mississippi. Congratulations to Mississippi and to the entire TVA Valley for the partnership between Kairos and Google and TVA. We need more power in this country, not less power. And I'm for all the power that we can generate. I'm for all of the legacy energy, which is coal, natural gas, nuclear, as well as any new technology, wind, solar, and these small nuclear reactors that are coming online. And that's what's been announced with Kairos is a 50 megawatt mini plant.
Yeah.
And it's going to have some far-reaching repercussions because Mississippi has some sites that are approved for one of these small nuclear plants, like Yellow Creek Port, or not Yellow Creek Port, the Yellow Creek Industrial Park in Tishomingo County is a site for one of those as well. And I hope that will be considered as they continue to expand and bring additional power supplies online.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Thanks for that update. So the site itself has already been through some or most or all of the permitting process to construct a nuclear power plant there?
Well, if you remember, they were going to build the solid rocket boosters at Yellow Creek, the industrial park.
Yep.
And then they were going to bring a nuclear reactor online there. Those plans were sidelined because the cost to build these nuclear plants got out of a line and skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So these new small nuclear reactor plants that are being brought online are really a product of 40 years worth of technology, like in nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
Nuclear submarines can generate unlimited amounts of power for a great deal of time. So that's where a lot of these technologies are coming from. And also, there's some new technology, not to get out in the weeds too far, but ionic or a liquid salt, it can be used to cool these reactors. So they're not under a lot of high-intensity pressure. They're under a lot of heat, but not under a lot of pressure. So we hope that that's going to provide some cost containment and allow these facilities to come online and generate power at a very economical point.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good news. TVA, your experience has been pretty positive with them, Sandra?
I'm very thankful for TVA. There's not an economic project that takes place in this area that TVA is not at the table. Toyota, by the way, they make the number one selling car in the world here in this area, the Toyota Corolla. They chose this location for a lot of reasons, but one of the major factors was a great workforce, but we had stable and reliable and cost-efficient power. All of the projects that are going in right now, especially these data centers, the battery plant, some expansions that are taking place with some of our major employers in this region, all rely on the low-cost power and the reliable power that TVA can produce as a partner.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll have to point out as well that in this part of the state, the power, the electricity provider, Entergy, has been a fantastic partner in these economic development efforts as well. All of these guys are stepping up, which is great news for Mississippi, and it does help us win these projects. There's no doubt. They run into all these other similar or sort of problems in the other states, in particular the permitting process, which is outrageous. And I think our state, our lawmakers have done a good job. Our Secretary of State. At just making the regulatory process and the permitting process business friendly, so it hasn't been a hindrance.
Yes, sir. And Mississippi already have a nuclear plant in South Mississippi.
Sure.
So having a site up here in Yellow Creek, that's very positive. And look, I'm thankful for TVA. I'm thankful for Entergy. I'm thankful for Mississippi Power. Most Mississippians don't realize it, but we're a power-producing state. We generate and sell more power than we consume.
Yeah, that's a good
so
point.
That really puts us in a strong position, a very competitive position across the country. And when you multiply that we have stable water, good drinking water, and a lot of water.
Yeah.
The West is going dry, Gerard. I don't know if you've been out there, been keeping up with the reports, but Mississippi has been blessed with a very strong water source as well. The mighty Mississippi and other water sources, the Tenn-Tom Waterway, and our vast lakes and underground aquifers across the state. So a lot of great factors are lining up for economic opportunities here in Mississippi.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's good news. We have all the ingredients. We have land, we have power, we have water, we have workforce, we have a business-friendly tax and regulatory environment.
Yes,
I mean, those are the building blocks for economic development, and I think we're seeing the benefits of that play out for sure with these number of massive announcements. Most recently, locally here in Rankin County, another big investment, $6 billion from Avio, and there are more to come. You know that, and I think there are more to come throughout the state. I think these big companies in particular that make these giant capital investments, their eyes have been open to the greatness of the state of Mississippi. We were kind of a hidden gem for a while, but they're paying attention now.
You know, something else we have is good weather. For the most part, you can do business in Mississippi 364 days a year.
Yeah, that's a good
You know,
point.
we might have a one-day snowstorm or a one-day ice storm or maybe a tornado, something of that nature, but that's a one-day issue. Our highways, our interstate system is ranked in the top 25 interstate systems in the United States. They're open every day. Mississippi's open for business.
Yeah, I agree. We got a break right now, but if you can hang around, I want to talk to you about what's going on with respect to your committees, in particular municipalities, and stuff going on with property taxes there that you know has caused quite a stir. Can you hang around?
Sure.
All
Yes,
right.
sir. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, sir.
You bet. We got Senator Chad McMahan on the line. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. We're in the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Senator Chad McMahan. He represents Senate District 6. That's up there in the Tupelo area, the northeastern part of the state of Mississippi. Serves as the chair of the Municipalities Committee. So before we went to break, Senator, I wanted to chat with you a bit about what sort of looks like a firestorm out there on social media. People are freaking out about the possibility of their property taxes rising as a result of some instructions from the Department of Revenue to reassess property values. The Department of Revenue maintains this is consistent with state statute. Are you familiar with this situation? I'm sure you are, and what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I'm very familiar. Here in my own county, property taxes went up an average of 18% last year.
Wow.
Part of what's driving this conversation, yes, sir, part of what's driving the conversation, I'm going to speak directly about Lee County, Mississippi.
Okay.
So every county has a tax assessor. The ability to reassess these values of this property belongs with your elected tax assessor. So I called my local tax assessor to ask him what's going on, help me understand what's happening. So here in Lee County, we did not have any property tax assessments since COVID. So it had been 4 years. So instead of going up a little percentage over the last 4 years, they did it all at one time. So it's an average of 18%. And yes, I've heard an outcry from the landowners and property owners here in Lee County. And again, that is not set by the legislature. It's set by the tax assessors. Ultimately, it's in their office to decide what to do with these property taxes. there is a large outcry, not from just Lee County, but across the state.
Yeah.
That some of these property taxes are getting out of hand. So I'm hearing it firsthand.
Okay, so just to clarify, the tax assessors, you're right, they're responsible for assessing and determining the value of taxable property. But is this reassessment, this revaluation, not based on current statute law in the state of Mississippi that requires a frequency of updating, some interval of updating property values?
Yes, property values have to be updated, but in DeSoto County Board of Supervisors lowered their taxes 2 weeks ago. It's well documented. You can look this up.
I've seen it.
So ultimately, it belongs to the elected officials. The tax assessors and supervisors across the state ultimately have the ability to raise or lower these taxes. There are really multiple taxing entities. People always think of the legislature, but there are other taxing entities. Your local city council can raise or lower taxes, your board of supervisors, and don't forget school boards. School boards, most of them are elected positions, and they have the ability to raise or lower taxes. So at the end of the day, it matters who's in office. It matters who's elected, and I'm proud to say that I have voted in my tenure in the state Senate. I have voted to lower property taxes. To lower the income tax. I have voted to lower the grocery tax. I have eliminated the franchise tax. I'm proud of those. And I want us to have a tax code that's fair and that attracts business. And I want it to be fair across the board. But I am hearing from those in the area that are very upset about these increased property taxes.
And we should point out that of property taxes, which are divided among three entities, that the one of those three that receives the most of the property taxes people in Mississippi pay is the school districts. So it's school districts, counties, and then municipalities, if that's applicable. That's typically what I see. I don't know that I've talked to anybody that says that their school district tax is less than county tax. Maybe that exists in a county somewhere in Mississippi. Certainly doesn't in my county of Madison. I mean, the lion's share of my property tax bill is for school districts.
Yeah, but you guys are going to, in Madison County, you're going to have an influx as these data centers come online. They have to pay property tax as well and sales tax.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's going to be a real interjection. Yeah, y'all may see your taxes lowered, and there is a possibility it'll be lowered because of this economic activity that's taking place in Madison County. But at the end of the day, it rests with the elected officials, the assessor, county board of supervisors, school district, and of course the legislature and your city boards as well.
I'm lobbying our supervisors in our school district to reduce the millage here in Madison County as a result of this bounty of ad valorem taxes we're about to receive from the massive investment by Amazon. So you're right. So that is one way to keep our property taxes low, is to develop our economy and bring more of these taxable assets in. Honestly, that's a small amount of their expense in the data center business it is. And even though a fee in lieu of was negotiated, which essentially gives them a discount on property taxes, it's still a massive amount of property taxes that they're going to be paying. But so I think folks are looking for the legislature to take action here some way. Do you see that possibly happen? I'm talking about specifically on this reassessment process going on.
So we're just going to talk hypothetical, okay?
Okay.
I want to be sure your audience understands I'm not promoting a different tax strategy, but you have to consider it. If people want to eliminate property taxes, then we will have to have a different tax strategy. I personally like a consumption tax. I wish all government would go to a sales tax form of government, but that would be taxing. Sales tax would be at a higher rate. And it would be on everything. Right now, when you sell or buy a piece of property, you don't pay sales tax when you buy a home. But that might be in the future if there are no property taxes. There's a lot of energy around lowering or eliminating these property taxes. I'm very sympathetic to the people and what's being said, and I'm listening very closely. And if the legislature and the other elected officials in this state want to look at a different taxing strategy, I'd be open to having some debate and some hearings on that to see what it would look like.
Okay, and we and I appreciate you clarifying your position there. We certainly made the point, Senator, that those who are saying, well, this was a bait and switch tactic, that we got the income tax phased out through HB1, but now we're getting higher property taxes. Those two sources of revenue fund different functions of government at different levels. Property taxes don't flow to the state government to fund state functions, and conversely, income taxes don't make their way down to the county and municipal level to fund those functions. A portion of sales taxes do, but we didn't eliminate that much of the sales taxes. And in fact, the states are making the cities whole in that respect by the reduction of the sales tax on groceries. So would you talk about that for a second?
Sure. When we eliminated the income tax, when we implemented the strategy of eliminating the income tax, lowering the grocery tax, we did reformulate the taxes so that the cities would be made whole.
Right.
And look, I want sales taxes to go back to the cities. Did you know in 2024 that 72% of the sales taxes collected in the state of Mississippi were collected in our 298 cities?
Sure.
So when the legislature sends money back to our cities to reinvest in our cities, we're not giving the cities money. We're returning the money to the cities that they collected for us.
Sure.
72 cents of every dollar is collected. That's right. But you are correct. And I try to explain this and help educate people. Your property taxes do not go to the state. That goes to your county and to your cities. That's to keep the road system up. That maintains your sheriff's departments, that maintains a county jail, it maintains a school system. Right. And the most expensive line item category in most people's budgets are school systems.
Yep.
Even in the Mississippi state budget, the number one category is public education at $2.3 billion is what we allocate of a $7 billion budget. $2.3 billion goes exactly or directly to education.
Yep.
So it's the number one line item. The second largest line item is Medicaid, and the third largest is roads and bridges at over $1 billion. Actually, roads and bridges may be more now that we've recalibrated the taxation with the gasoline tax. Roads and bridges may be number two. But you know what? I want to share this, Gerard. I find that most people don't mind paying taxes when they can see that tax money at work in their schools, in their roads, and their bridges, in law enforcement. Most Mississippians are angry, as I'm angry, about those that are sitting, who can work, but they're sitting at home not working, and they're in the wagon of Mississippi and of America, and we're out here pulling the wagon. We need some folks to get out of the wagon and help us pull and help us pay the taxation of this. We've got too many people who are unproductive and who are sitting at home. Yeah. And I still would like to stay with you for just another minute, because I do want to talk about something that's going to be a focal or center point for municipalities next year, if you're interested in hearing about it.
We're up against a break right now. If you can hang on, we'll be back with you in just a couple of minutes. We got Senator Chad McMahan on the line. We're coming right back. Yep.
Everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting with Senator Chad McMahan. He's joining us remotely. Looks like you're up in your office in Tupelo right there, Senator.
I am. I'm in my home office this morning.
Yeah.
As soon as we wrap this up, I'm headed out.
Okay.
Something's going on with the mobile service in this area today. It's been very sporadic, so I ran home to have this interview with you.
I got you. All right, so before we went to break, you wanted to talk about something else going on with respect to municipalities as you chair the Municipalities Committee in the state Senate. What's up?
Yes, sir. So I've traveled all 298 cities in Mississippi, and this year I've attended the MML. And you've got to have three things in a city to be successful. You've got to have a local school, you need a local bank branch, and you need access to health care. If you don't have those three things in your area, then your city is probably not growing at the rate that it could grow. But the one thing that can destroy all of this economic prosperity and these three ingredients is violent crime. And I'm hearing from mayors across the state, Democrat and Republican mayors, that want the crime stopped. And our cry needs to be, our motto in Mississippi needs to be, there's no time for crime in Mississippi. And it's my understanding we're having a series of conversations. We're going to have some hearings on violent crime. There are too many people that are committing violent crime. They're getting out on these on bonds, where realistically they're getting. You may have a $500,000 bond where they've got to have $50,000 a bond in place to get out, but they're only paying $5 down and financing the rest of it. So they're getting out of jail, getting out of these county facilities for $5, $10, $25 or whatever that fee may be. We've got to put a stop to it. And we're on that trail, and I'm listening very carefully. The decent, law-abiding citizens of Mississippi want this violent crime put to rest, and these criminals and thugs and gangster wannabes locked up.
So is there anything that's preventing our cities from achieving that goal as you just described? I mean, I think most people listening would say, well, yeah, that makes sense. Let's get the criminals off the street and lock them up.
It's multifaceted. As I get more and more into this, there are judges across the state that are not adhering to the guidelines that are established by the courts for bonding. There are judges doing what they want to do. There are some municipalities where they're not arresting people for violent crime, or we've got situations where we don't have jail capacity in some counties to hold violent crime. It's a multifaceted. It's no one person's fault, but we want to be sure that we look very carefully at the way the judicial system is working in Mississippi, and that we're giving our judges and our prosecutors and our law enforcement the resources they need to keep these criminals and these violent crime criminals off of our city streets across the state.
Is there anything we need to be doing at the state level from a policy or legislative perspective to ensure that all the assets, all the resources are in place to get the bad actors off the streets?
Gerard, we're having those conversations now. I want to applaud and commend and my counterpart, Randy Rushing, in the House of Representatives. Very effective, very effective legislator, very kind and humble guy. He's eager to work with this. I'm working with some mayors across the state in both parties who are eager to see something done. We're involving the courts. We're involving different groups. It's going to be a multifaceted coalition of people that want to see this violent crime taken off the street.
Yeah, of course, I know you guys have had discussions about it in the past, but right here in central Mississippi, as you know, in the capital city in particular, it's been a huge problem. And you guys took some action with respect to expanding the jurisdiction of the Capitol Police, and they work in concert, I believe, with the City of Jackson Police, the Sheriff's Department to patrol the area. I can pass on that I do see more Capitol Police vehicles on the streets as I travel around in and out of the city of Jackson than I have ever, honestly. So it seems like they were getting some benefit there.
That's just one of our 298 cities. I'm interested in what's going on in all of our cities.
Sure.
So from So I want to be helpful. I want to know what we can do to be helpful. If they need more assets, we just may need some new guidelines from the courts on bonding, setting different guidelines. I'm not saying I have all the solutions. I'm saying that I'm hearing the cry from across the country, from across the state. I'm listening very carefully. And the mayors, Democrats and Republicans that want to work together to stop this violent crime, my hand is out to work with them. I hope and pray that the new mayor of Jackson, Mayor John Horn, is successful. My hand is out to him. I want to be a partner. I want to work with him. I want him to be successful, because if he's successful, Jackson's going to be successful.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think it's also accurate to say that the state needs its capital city to be successful. We have so many people that come from out of state that have business to do in the central Mississippi area. They fly into the airport. They travel through the capital city. We don't want it to look quite as disheveled as it often does. It doesn't project a great image, as we're trying to recruit people to expand business in here or even move here.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about, since we're talking specifically about Jackson, I'm very concerned about the violent crime. It's the murder capital of the United States. I'm not proud of that. I'm just stating a fact.
Yeah.
And we've got to work together with all law-abiding citizens and organizations that have an interest in our state and in our capital city to take Jackson back street by street.
Yeah. So I know that in your discussions with municipal leaders, I'm quite sure something that comes up. One thing we've talked about, one subject we've talked about a lot on this program with members of the legislature, and that's the public employees retirement system. You guys created a new tier, Tier 5. There have been some concerns expressed about that. But we still have an unfunded liability problem to address as well. What are you hearing at the municipal level from municipal leaders, which, of course, also includes police departments, law enforcement, et cetera?
It's not just city, county, and state government that's suffering from a lack of labor. It's everywhere. The restaurants, the factories, manufacturing, the banks, everyone is looking for employees. And what's taking place is our population has shrunk in Mississippi.
Right.
So we've got to pull more people and encourage more people to come to Mississippi and have a home and see career opportunities here. That's why and so a lot of this is going to be taken care of if we can just grow our population and grow our economic base.
Yeah.
But it's not unique to cities and counties and to the state what's happening. It's happening all facets. I've got a restaurant owner in this area he's got about 18 restaurants, has over 1,000 employees. He's having a hard time. The banks are having a hard time finding people for entry-level jobs. It's everywhere. It's not just government that's looking for labor.
Yeah. Is that kind of what they're telling you? Their concerns are that this new retirement plan that goes into effect next year might make it more difficult to recruit new people?
I'm hearing that some, Gerard, but look, there's a couple of things. There are 4 other tier systems in the public employees retirement system. The 5th tier is a hybrid. It's still going to have a defined benefit, but it's also going to have a 401k component, which brings into alignment with what's happening in the private sector.
Right.
A lot of people have done very well in their 401ks. And so this is an opportunity for a hybrid. But more importantly, by implementing the new Tier 5 within the retirement system, which was endorsed, it was endorsed by the board that runs the public employees retirement. Yep. 9 of the 10 members voted for this. So when public employees say, we're having a hard time recruiting, this was endorsed by their representatives. I voted for what they endorsed. This was the plan they presented. Yeah. So it's going to save, and it actually turns the system is going to turn positive. I believe it's in 2047 it turns positive, and by 2060, I think it's 2066. It may be 2063, but it's 90% funded.
Yeah.
So it's a good program, and a lot of young people want to be in the market. A lot of young people want a hybrid program where they can have a defined benefit as well as having a 401k that they can make investments in some of these emerging technologies that have made people very wealthy here in the United States. This is a free market society. You had a 401k, and so did I.
Yeah, got it.
We've both been able to retire from careers because we did have a private sector 401k that did very well. So it's a hybrid program.
We got to go. Appreciate you sticking around. Good information. Thanks a lot, Sandra. Appreciate it.
Polyupa, Mississippi.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. A little Purple Haze by the great Jimi Hendrix there. Appreciate Senator Chad McMahan for joining us from his home office there in Tupelo. Good discussion. And, of course, this controversy about the PERS program is certainly one that has gotten a lot of attention, especially, as you know, Rhino, out there in the old social media world. And there's a lot of misinformation about it. I think that's one thing I would say. And that's always a risk, of course. But it seems like some of the concerns may be a little overblown. I mean, really, before we've talk to anybody directly about it. It's just there's a lot of assumptions made. Oh, my gosh, I'm not going to be able to hire anybody as a result. And that is those feelings are being expressed. And we're not talking about existing people. We're talking about new people. March 1 of next year, I believe, is when it goes into effect. That would be anybody hired in a job that qualifies for the public employees retirement system. That would go into effect March of next year. Just feels like that, again, some of those concerns are overblown. And the way that it addresses the unfunded liability problem is that it divides. I'm just going to kind of clarify the details here. An employee would have essentially a defined benefit plan, which is the same program structure that the current PERS 4 tiers are. And then you've also got a defined contribution plan, which, as the senator said, is more akin to a standard private sector 401k plan, where you direct those investments. The difference is, it's the most important distinction, is that in a defined benefit plan, such as PERS, current PERS, such as Social Security, when you begin to receive benefits, those continue until you die. Doesn't matter how much you've put into it. There literally is not like an account sitting somewhere in the big computer in the cloud there that's got your contributions stored in it, waiting for you to start withdrawing. It's not how it works. What you're paying in to Social Security, if you're paying into PERS, that's going out the door to pay benefits to those currently receiving them. That's the nature of a defined benefit program. So what will happen here is employers will continue to contribute 18.4%. That, by the way, that's escalating to about 2.5%. That was enacted into law in the 2024 session. So I think it was 2.5%. So that'll bump it up to 29 is 20.9%. You checking me on that? I want to make sure I got the amount and the date right. I think it was 0.5% per year over 5.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it will terminate at 20.9%. 20.9% being paid by the employer on behalf of the employee. But what's different here is, in this new plan, the employee will pay 4%. There's the same contribution rate of 9% that they pay today, but 4% goes into the defined benefit standard PERS program, 5% into the defined contribution plan. On the other hand, the employer's total amount contributed goes into the current defined benefit program. What that's essentially doing is paying partially as in relative to the old plan, the current plan, to the employee's retirement. The rest of it's going to pay down the unfunded liability. So the employer still kicks in, it will be 20.9% that totally goes into the standard PERS defined benefit program. In other words, the employees 5% go into their defined contribution plan, their standard sort of 401k plan. Their employer's not matching that. That's not a requirement. Not guaranteed. The employer may elect to do so. So you're an employee, 4% is going to your standard PERS program, 5% is going to your defined contribution 401k type program. Your employer's kicking in what will be 20.9%, all of which is going to your PERS program. But when you get ready to retire, the calculation of your benefit for your defined benefit portion, the amount you're paying the 4% in, it's different. It's calculated different because you're not paying the full 9% to it. You're dividing that between the two. So that's the bottom line is you pay the same amount in, the employer pays the same amount in, you get less out from the defined benefit program, you figure out how you want to invest in the contribution plan. The employer, on the other hand, sends all its money to the benefit program, which works towards reducing the unfunded liability. Fox News, SuperTalk News coming up next.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply. And look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. We are back with you in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
You are tuned in to Middays. All right, so just kind of wrapping this thing up with the PERS deal. What all the outcries about is that those who enter the system next March, new employees, yeah, it's true, their benefits won't be as lucrative. And that's exactly why the program's broke, is because the benefits are too rich relative to the revenue produced by the organization. And that revenue, of course, is generated from contributions primarily, and then income on the investments. That's where it comes from. And that's what causes the problem. So what the hope is with this program is that would be addressed, but it's long term. As you heard the senator say, yeah, we are upside down now. We're below the percentage that we're supposed to be at from a funding perspective that actuaries are comfortable with, and that will get to kind of the minimum funded percentage by 2047, and then it even improves after that. And that's because as time progresses, people that are in the program that is from a more lucrative tier perspective, they attrit out. They live their retirement years, receive their earned benefits, and then they pass on. And so the new retirees, as time progresses, going into the roles, they don't have as lucrative a benefit package. And so but the same amount by the employer. That's the key thing here, still being paid in. So all the employer's contributions go into PERS, and only half, roughly, a little less than half actually, of the employees' contributions go into PERS, and thus their benefits have been adjusted in that tier downward, so they get less money. One of the things folks have complained about is the calculation there, age 62 with less than 30 years of service, and then an actuarial reduction is made for each year of creditable service below 30 years or for each year in age below 65, whichever is left. So the main change there is 1% versus 2%. 1% of average compensation is per year of service versus 2% per year of service. And then the other thing, the calculation includes 8 years of your highest earned compensation consecutively, whereas in the current program it's 4. That's a big thing, because you know that happens a lot, Rhino. They work for many years in the system at some level of pay in some position, and then they figure out a way to get themselves into a higher compensated position to get their high 4, as they refer to it. But you've been paying in all this time, and so has your employer on your behalf at that lower level of pay. But that's thrown out the window when you calculate your benefits when you get ready to retire. They're only using the last 4. So as just an example, you work 30 years, and 26 of those years you make $50,000 a year, and your contributions are levied on that amount. Your last 4, you got a $100,000 a year job, and this happens. It absolutely happens. Your benefits are based on the last 4 $100,000 compensation, but you paid in the majority of your working years at the lower compensation. So you paid less in, but you're going to get higher benefits out, and all that just kind of combines to make the thing insolvent, among many other things as well. So this addresses that by saying, yeah, we're going to do your high 8. It's a little more difficult to kind of work through the job roles and occupations to get you set up for a high 8, right, than 4. It's a little easier task. But that's what's going on there. By the way, I wrote an article about Social Security because it turned 90 a couple of weeks ago. We were discussing that on the show. You can find that at supertalk.fm. I hope you'll take a look at that. It digs into some of the history there and talks about kind of what's going on and the challenges being faced by the Social Security program. And the main message that I attempted to deliver in that article is we're drawing ever so close to that point at which Social Security will not be able to fully pay benefits. And the Congress is the only possible solution to that problem, meaning they got to do something to fix it. There's a million recommendations. Most of those are not permanent. They don't fix it permanently. The left, of course, the Democrats just want to say get rid of the $176,000 cap and tax all wages above that for Social Security purposes. But those people don't get any more money out. If they did, of course, you're just swapping. That truly is a swap there. You're not, as far as trying to address the unfunded liability problem. On the other hand, there's been some proposals of raising the retirement age. That's not popular. There have been some proposals to convert to this defined benefit program where you don't get benefits for as long as you live. Problem with that is you'd have to have a whole bunch of money set aside to pay for the benefits for all those people above whatever that cutoff age would be should they convert the program. And we don't have that money. There is a permanent solution, and it's the most unpopular of all, and I'm not a fan of it, and that's to raise the contribution rate on employers and employees. By the way, by about a third. It's about 2.5 percentage points on both sides. I think right now it's 6.5% is what we pay in. Employer, employee, 13% of pay. You could raise that to roughly 9% on both sides. That would fix it permanently. But that's not popular because then you're taking money out of people's pockets. I'm not a fan of that. What does bother me is that there are people on the left and some on the right that say, oh, well, if it's the rich people doing it, that's fine. That's okay. Well, why is that any better? You're still raising taxes. You're still taking money out of the private sector and sticking it in some government pot, essentially, to pay some future benefits or to cover, really, those future benefits. So I'm not a big fan of that. Right now, by the way, the Dow is over 900 points. You brought this up yesterday. They're doing a story about this on the television. The Cracker Barrel, man, has that ignited a firestorm or what? My gosh.
Somewhat. It feels like it's being excuse me, it's Friday. The flames of the firestorm are being fanned by engagement farmers on both sides of the aisle.
That's true.
Because what I was talking about yesterday was just the design style choice and going to a minimalist design and how that's kind of on its way out in the design landscape. But some people have taken the angle on, well, the woke CEO, of course, had to make it woke, and now it's woke. And it's like, a minimalist isn't really woke, so I don't really understand that angle, but okay. I mean, I get it. Cracker Barrel had the rainbow slats on the rocking chairs and stuff. They went full-blown crazy, just like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And then you've got the people on the left that are trying to kind of latch on to the social media movement to the point that the Democrat Party, like the National Democrat Party, their Twitter account posted a meme about how they, too, don't like the Cracker Barrel redesign. And I think it was David Hogg was tweeting about it, and it's just silly. It's something that this time next week nobody's really going to give a rip about, but such is the year of our Lord 2025, where for a portion of the population, social media is life.
So you sent me this post that's got a list of all these words that the party, the Democrat Party at least, is recommending to discontinue use of, right? And so you know this. They've got all these super smart people, at least they believe they're smart, that come up with all these various words that you should insert, right, in all of your comments and speeches and writings and ramblings and musings. And supposedly that helps you politically. But it
helps you with intersectionality.
That's right. Which doesn't help politically. They still hadn't gotten that memo yet. But you sent me that. I couldn't believe how lengthy the list is. How did they come up with all these words? Would you read a couple of them real quick before we go to break?
They don't want the Democrats using words like subverting norms or systems of oppression or existential threat to or radical transparency or dead naming or heteronormative or patriarchy or involuntary confinement or allyship.
It's so crazy. We're coming right back with Kelly Bennett from the news department.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
tired eyes. I'll soon be with you, my love. Give you my dawn surprise.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We're pleased to welcome now Kelly Bennett, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. What's happening, Kelly?
Good afternoon, Gerard. Well, we started this morning with some breaking news from Ingalls Shipyard in Pascagoula. This is the latest. One person dead and a suspect in custody after a shooting at the shipyard this morning. It started around 7:30 when Ingalls alerted all employees to shelter in place due to an active shooter situation. Around 9 a.m., police confirmed to SuperTalk Mississippi News that a suspect was taken into custody. Neither the identity of the suspect nor the deceased has been released at this time. Law enforcement was still at the scene last we checked in. There are some rumors, unconfirmed reports that more individuals may have been injured in this shooting, but we don't have any confirmation on that at this point.
Wow, man. So, yeah, I haven't heard about this. Thanks for updating us on that. That's disturbing to hear at a minimum. But, man, at Ingalls, I don't know that I've ever heard any kind of reports like that. And, that's a little surprising just because when you consider the number of people that are at that facility every day, over
11,000 employees at the shipyard. I mean, there was the potential for something really bad.
Yeah.
So,
man. Well, we hope that all gets settled and calmed down for sure.
That's not to say this wasn't bad. I didn't mean that to come across like that.
I'm sure. It could have been worse, I guess, without the swift action of authorities, no doubt about it. A Batesville woman accused of making some explosives, homemade explosives, right? What's up with that?
This is the strangest story. It's like, I think I heard Dave Hughes. He was filling in for Richard Cross earlier this week, and he was talking about this would be a great movie from what's happened because it's so bizarre. A Batesville woman accused of making homemade explosives and trying to kill someone with those explosives. Now she's facing additional charges. So here's the background. 27-year-old Christina Willis is accused of trying to escape from the Lafayette County Detention Center. She and another person were caught after investigators received a tip that the pair had orchestrated a plan to break free. Law enforcement caught them before they could. The additional charges will be tacked on to Willis's prior charges that include attempted murder and planning a bomb. The bomb was found on the top of the intended victim's vehicle, and she alerted police. Thankfully, it didn't detonate. They managed to do that safely, but it's really bizarre.
That is fantastic. It's just crazy that fantastic in that it's hard to believe is what I mean there, not in a good way. It's just unbelievable that stuff like that's going on. What's weird is that happens at the same time this Ingalls situation plays out and on opposite ends of the state there. Just sort of unusual occurrences, incidents.
Yeah, and typically we get into politics more than we do crime stories when I do these segments with you. So it is unusual for me to pull these crime stories forward, but I thought they were worth mentioning.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And, it's a bit timely because we just had Senator Chad McMahan on, who chairs municipalities in the Mississippi State Senate. Of course, fighting crime and just public safety are huge priorities, top of mind by our city leaders, and he talked about that somewhat, that he's hearing concerns about that across the state, and he just stated that he and the legislature are committed to ensuring that the cities in Mississippi, he said there are 281 different municipalities incorporated, I believe, in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, I heard that interview. I was really listening with interest while he brought up the violent crime issue. I think a lot of us in Mississippi, it's a very rural state. So for us, you know where the crime is kind of centered in your community, but it doesn't seem like it's such a big problem until McMahan brought that to the forefront. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and so I think it's right that he takes that as a top priority on his committee. I mean, it's essential. You can't have a high quality of life, a thriving economy with opportunity unless you and your loved ones and your friends are safe. I mean, that's just fundamental, right? And it's the same thing on a national basis. We've seen the president take a strong interest in that and deploying National Guard troops. I think that's more about sending a message and about deterrence in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and said, we'll go to other places as well. In fact, right now he's talking about it. Just came on the screen in here. Says he may address crime in Chicago and New York City. And we're not immune to it, even in small municipalities here in Mississippi.
We're certainly not. And while you're on the topic of crime and the National Guard being sent in to D.C. to help support Trump's effort to return law and order to our nation's capital, I thought this was pretty interesting. GOP strategist William Russell said earlier this week he sees similarities between what Trump is doing and Governor Tate Reeves using the Capitol Police to help fight crime in Jackson.
I'm thankful for these Republican governors and the president for stepping in. I mean, it's a projection of strength, which is not sort of a new idea for the Trump administration. This is what he does.
Yeah.
And I really thought that was a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's kind of exactly what happened in our capital.
Yeah, I completely, totally agree. So let's talk about Trump. The president wants to end mail-in ballots and also discontinue the use of voting machines. It really wasn't clear to me whether or not he was talking about the sort of machines we use in Mississippi to actually just tabulate paper ballots, or if he's talking about those that allow direct voting. Not clear. And, we had Secretary of State Michael Watson on the program talking about that here this week. What you got to share with us there?
I think this is going to become a bigger story than it is right now when the word starts getting out, and I'll explain why. So Trump plans to issue an executive order to ban mail-in ballots and voting machines before the 2026 midterms. He argues that controversial voting machines cost 10 times more than accurate and sophisticated watermark paper, which is faster and leaves no doubt as to who won and who lost an election. Yeah. And of course, we caught Secretary of State Michael Watson. He's already seeking clarification. So here's what he says about Mississippi.
Did the vote by mail mean these states like Oregon and others who have all vote by mail? Or did he mean, hey, look, in states like Mississippi where it's very limited, less than 3% of the turnout is by mail, did he mean that? When you look at this, it's the machine piece. Did he mean these DRE machines that most states have now gotten rid of, or did he mean the optical scanners that actually count the paper ballots?
Now, a lot of times when I see a story like this, I think to myself, let the lawsuits begin, because
there's no doubt.
What they have.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
States have the constitutional authority to determine how they administer federal elections. It's really a state issue, although Congress can establish rules through law. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I just always have concerns that, when there's a change in leadership from a party perspective, the Democrats have sought to fully federalize elections, and if we don't see some attempt via executive order to do so, and we start sort of testing the boundaries of what the executive branch is able to do here. So it's a little concerning. I still believe that the states should reserve the right to determine how their elections are conducted. And I know there's some language in our Constitution about where the federal government can also have a role, a say in that. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and states all handle their elections so differently. And I think it's really the states who recognize, where their residents live and work and their schedules and that kind of thing. And so it makes sense that this stays a state power.
Yeah, I think so. And I got the feeling in my discussion with Secretary of State Michael Watson that he agrees with that as well. He made some comment about, we still got to adhere to the Constitution. I think he said that, as you recall, Rhino, during the segment. He specifically, explicitly referenced the Constitution, and he just expressed his concerns about maybe this is kind of getting outside of the way it restricts and essentially establishes the way that's supposed to happen. Appreciate it, Kelly. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great weekend.
You too. We're coming right back with half an hour of Middays. Stay with us.
Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I recall when I was small, how I spent my days alone. The busy world was not for me, so I went and found my own. I would climb.
Yeah, a little Steely Dan on a Friday afternoon. That kind of mellow you out for the weekend, right? Okay, so what was it you said we had to talk about before we got out of here? What was that?
Oh, yeah, we got to talk about our sister in broadcast, Rebecca Turner. She's
exactly
currently
right.
competing in the, let me get the name right, the Cerberus Strength National Strongman 2025 Worlds competition over in Ireland. And today was the first day of the competition after the first event in which she set 2 personal records. She was tied for second place in the world. And after the second event in the competition, she is currently ranked number 6 in the world.
Okay, that's awesome. Congratulations.
And she's setting personal records in every event so far.
Well, you know, the first thing that comes to mind, I'm not surprised, honestly. She's great shape, quite athletic, has all the components to succeed in such competition. No doubt about it. So we're proud of her. That's fantastic. So the one thing I wanted to point out before I get off this PERS issue, that a lot of the folks, I've seen more complaints about this, I guess, from employers, public sector employers, who are, to a great extent, I think, kind of overblowing the challenges this new tier is going to make in their recruiting new employee process. But the big thing that they have expressed concerns about is the fact that under the current plan, 30 years at any age gets you fully eligible for benefits. 30 years. Vesting is 8 years. That stays the same. That simply means that once you paid in for 8 years, you can get your money out one way or another, essentially. You vested it. You own what you've paid in. But to be eligible to begin drawing benefits, current plan, 30 years, any age. You start working at age 21, work 30 years, 51, you're good to go. You're retired. And you see what the problem is. So you work 30 years, start at age 21, which many do, honestly. Some sooner than that. 18. Work to 48. Then live to 90 and draw benefits out. That's where it doesn't work. And
that's a problem that it's not exclusive to the Magnolia State or even the United States. I sent you a video last night of in China.
I saw
their
that.
Social Security system is not taken out of their paycheck automatically. You have to pay at the Social Security office every paycheck. And there is growing discontent within the population because, well, in a communist society, government workers are king. Government employees are retiring at age 50 and drawing down 10, 20 times more in their pension payments than the average person.
Yeah. It's crazy.
To the point where there's this whole phenomenon in China, and now apparently it's taken over somewhere in, I think it was Rushing, or maybe it was Queens, in New York, of dancing in the city square, where the 50-plus-year-old retirees from the government, because they have such nice pensions in China, if you're a government worker, are out in the square dancing every night from sundown to sun up, taking trips, sending their kids to American universities because they're making that much money off the backs of the working people. To the point where people are now showing up at the Social Security office trying to cancel their Social Security benefits and get out of the system. There's just one problem, China being China. As of September 1, it'll be mandatory to be a part of the system because, well, they're running out of money to pay those benefits to the government employee retirees.
I saw that. They literally within the last few days, right, is when they, I don't know if they call it law or what they call it. It's a dictate, I guess is what it is in their society and their system. But, yeah, I wasn't aware that it was optional and that you had to go, like, write a check or however they pay for it. You give them the yuan, right, is the currency in China. I didn't know that's how it worked.
One of the guys they were talking to was upset because his Social Security tax that he pays every month is, I believe it was 1,400 yuan. And he's being forced to pay that even though his parents, who work in the same industry he's working in, he took over the family business of farming, his parents draw down about 150 a month.
Wow.
He's like, I could opt out and send them this money and they would have much better lives.
That's right. Wow. I had no idea. Well, so it's not only a problem here in this country and in our state, also in China. Who would have known,
and
right?
For context, the exchange rate, like 100 yuan, one of the farmers they were talking to, he gets 100 yuan a month and it covers his food. And when they ask him, well, how do you afford food on 100 yuan a month? A half a pack of noodles is good enough to last him a day. And he can afford just enough packs of noodles to make it to his next pension check.
Unbelievable.
And the other elderly farmers they were talking to were all like, yeah, I eat meat once or twice a year, usually around New Year's.
I had no idea.
One guy was like, yeah, I get about 5 pounds of meat a year.
So,
just imagine that.
Even though I know this is a bit of a rhetorical question, I got to say it anyhow. Please explain to me why the left-wing affluent elites in New York City, who are all over this Zoran Mondami guy, essentially support the same system which you described. How can they not open their dang eyes and see what's happening? I eat meat once a year. That's what they said, right?
Yeah.
And then we're not talking about rich vegetarians in this country that by choice don't consume it. And I just I can't comprehend why is it they support a guy who wants to implement the system that created that environment in China.
Because they're convinced, because they're on the right side of the aisle, that they will be the ones dancing in the square.
Oh, so I got you. They're the Politburo is what they think. Well, we can't have that many of them. Somebody's got to be in the proletariat to make it work. Oh, my gosh. So have you seen these reports? Is it Bolivia? Where they, one of the South American countries, I think it's Bolivia, went to the polls and said, you know what, this socialism thing isn't working out very well. Recently had elections. They just completely changed.
A couple days ago.
Yeah, a couple of days ago. Shocked everybody. Essentially ousted the socialists who have been in charge. Because we were talking about inflation earlier. You know, our Fed's trying to get it down to 2%. What the heck's it been over there? 30, 40% like a year? Nothing to eat? Just the basic necessities of life out of reach?
It's averaged around 40%.
Okay.
But part of that is because in the 80s they had hyperinflation where between 82 and 85 the prices increased 23,000%. So it skews the average a bit. The highest in recent memory was around 7%.
Okay,
but still, that's 7% inflation.
Yeah.
On the back of in living memory having it 23,000%.
We got to 9% because of Joe Biden's idiocy in 22, but then started trending downward. Still too high for comfort, 5%. Now we're at between 2.5 and 3. But imagine 23,000. Now, I remember being at a class when I worked for Arthur Andersen up in Chicago. And, of course, this is a global firm, and they bring in people from all over the world to their training facility. And I remember, I think it was Venezuela. We had it was Argentina that experienced rampant inflation back in the late 70s or early 80s there when I was in school. And I remember the young folks like me, in their 20s right out of college, talking about 150% inflation back in that time frame that I couldn't comprehend. You see that? I think that's what it was back then.
Yeah, by the late 80s, they were experiencing 3,000%
God dang.
year over year.
Yet these idiots in this country living in an environment where we don't accept the 3% we're living with. This is what they want. Wake the hell up, people. Our education systems have failed. That's all I can say. Because every one of these people got some dumb degree. I say dumb because it really doesn't provide any value. What they learned, they figured out something else to do to be productive to some extent in society. Wake up, man. Come on. We're stepping aside for the final segment after the break coming up right here. Stay with us.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
That's a pretty upbeat sound there, man. Guys flying on the drums, of course, I would notice that. Well, we are back with you. So, this working for 35 years to get to be able to retire in the new tier in PERS at any age, or 62 invested, 8 years to vest. The current plan's 60 invested. So 30 to 35, 60 to 62. That's where I'm seeing most of the pushback coming from. Thomas in Greenwood says, how is offering both a pension and a 401k plan with a match a hindrance to finding employees? Well, in Senator McMahan, I'm not saying it always is, or it necessarily is. Senator McMahan, you heard him say that a lot of young people want to have control of their plans. Here's the difference, though, Thomas. This is where I think most of the concerns are coming from. The employee puts 5% in, but they're not getting a match from their employer. That's the difference. That's discretionary on the part of the employer. So typically, you're motivated to set aside some of your income in a standard 401k type account for your eventual retirement because your employer is matching that. It may not be a dollar for dollar match. It's typically not. It's less than that. And that's also tax free.
Yeah, the days of the cushy 2-for-1 matches in corporations, those are long gone.
Yeah, it's usually 50 cents to $1 is a typical standard in that. So that's the difference. Now, Thomas will tell you, well, if I could do that, I'd be a billionaire because I have outsmarted that market. Oh, my gosh. So on the C Spire text line, yeah, same thing you said, Rhino. I'm sorry I didn't get to a lot of texts today. We had a busy day with guests and so forth. But you made the point that, yeah, all the people that are standing with Mondami as he spouts his socialism nonsense, they're on the Politburo side, meaning that it's those others, the little people out there, right, the proletariat. They're going to do all the work, but all the spoils will go. That's the way socialism works.
It just proves that the concept of useful idiots is not siloed into one socioeconomic bubble.
No doubt. But
you can be rich and still be a useful idiot.
They say that the elites won't do without. It's totally true on the C Spire text line.
Until they say something that goes against the narrative.
Yeah, so...
and then they'll have everything confiscated. Like, what's his face? Ma in China.
Totally true. Or
went from a billionaire to disappeared, and then he reappeared, and now he rides a bike everywhere.
And that's oh shoot, I'm losing remember what the name of the damn company is that made him so wealthy, of course. But yeah, that's exactly right. If you don't act right over there,
Alibaba.
Yeah, I know it was an internet-based company, services company. I just couldn't remember the name of it. But if you don't fall in line just right, you will disappear. I mean, literally, that's what they don't remember or don't want to acknowledge. That nasty part of socialism and communism, because it's all built on obedience.
Well, I mean, in fairness,
conformance.
The wealthy elites in New York are so insulated from reality, they couldn't possibly think it would happen to them.
No doubt about it. On the C Spire text line, I called the Social Security Administration. They said that my benefits would be based on my last 35 years of work. Yeah, not the amount you paid in, by the way. It's based on the number of years you paid in. And there's a formula. It doesn't work the way the PERS system does. In fact, the formulas are 3 tiers that look at your pay. And I can't remember. I don't have it completely committed to memory, but a certain amount of it is based on this part of your pay, and a certain amount of it is based on that. There's 3 tiers involved, and that's why the amount you pay in is irrelevant. It's your pay when you get ready to retire, or the pay through the years. Because remember, it's designed as income security. It says, oh, you're going to quit working, you're going to lose your income. Well, we're going to give you a benefit that's equal to a fraction of it, is the way the system works. Let's see. Yes, sir, I work at Ingalls, and unfortunately the news is correct. It's a sad day out here for sure. I thank y'all for what you do. I listen every day, Jody Johnson. We're so sad to hear that about this incident at Ingalls, the shooting incident at Ingalls that Kelly Bennett reported on. So, man. Larry and Mize, final thing here, is it true our property taxes are about to go up a lot? It's true that counties are supposed to reassess. I'm being told that DeSoto just hadn't been keeping up with that, which is why it's such a firestorm in DeSoto County. We're out of here today. Back with you Monday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.